My father was an orphan on his own at age 12. And I think the trauma, honestly, of his early days propelled him to go forward and create this really loving, incredible family. And entrepreneurship is we're breaking the rules, we're making the rules, right? And it is a small crowd statistically who has the chutzpah, who is up to the challenge to basically break out of the norm and go build something. It could be disruptive, it could be an Uber, but more likely it's a business that's doing one thing that's just a little different and better. They see a boulder in that highway, they walk around it. They know they're not going to move the boulder, but they'll figure out a way to continue their journey. And there is a certain manic depression in startup land that is real. And there's such reward to be had, but there's so many obstacles to it that it can be crushing to people psychologically. And a startup founder that goes through that juggernaut has to be able to deal with it, has to have the support system, has to manage their time, their sleep, their attitude.
What sleep are you talking about? We don't get sleep. What's going on, family and friends? Today I'm joined by Professor John Bradley Jackson, my former entrepreneurship professor at Cal State Fullerton back in 2012. This living legend is about to retire after a long 50-year career, and I'm super excited to interview him before he hangs up those gloves. Without any further ado, let's roll that intro and dive on in. What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Alrighty, today I'm joined by John Bradley Jackson. To many, he is known as JJ, but to me, he's known as Professor Jackson. JJ is an investor, an author, an entrepreneur, a mentor, and a longtime professor of entrepreneurship at Cal State Fullerton, my alma mater. JJ's not only been a guiding force in the startup ecosystem, but also someone who's had a long-lasting impact on my life personally, which we'll get into in just a moment. But JJ was a student at Cal State Fullerton back in 1973. Fast forward to today, he's the director of Cal State Fullerton Center of Entrepreneurship and Startup Incubator. JJ has helped with the launch of more than 100 startups. He's authored numerous books, empowered communities, and inspired generations of students along the way. Most recently, he was nominated for Orange County Business Journal's Entrepreneur of the Year Award for the 6th time, I believe, a fitting capstone to a remarkable career end. As he enters retirement after 50 years of excellence in academia, business, and mentorship, I'm super honored to have this conversation with someone who helped shape my professional journey and the lives of so many others. So with that being said, how you doing today, Professor? And how did I do on your intro?
You scored 9 out of 10. How's that? And
9 out of 10.
I don't give many A+. I have high standards.
As you should, as the director of entrepreneurship, as you should. The bar is very high, and I understand. But thank you very much for joining me today, sir. You've had a remarkable journey from teaching to investing, advising, and building. You're a machine, sir. To start this off, before we talk about your impact at Cal State Fullerton, let's talk about your background. What was your upbringing like? Where did you grow up? If you don't mind just sharing your origin, sir.
Yeah, I grew up in rural Kansas, right in the middle of the United States. And I'm number 7 of 8 children, large Catholic family. And our values were built around the community, our church, and supporting each other. My father was an orphan on his own at age 12. And I think the trauma, honestly, of his early days propelled him to go forward and create this really loving, incredible family. And for him, he never got beyond the 8th grade. And so education was instilled in me as a ultra high priority. And so I carried that forward We moved to Southern California when I was 9. So I'm a blend of the wheat fields and surfing. And I started working when I was 12.
Were you working at the pizza shop here with your pops?
It just so happens I made $1 a day and all the pizza and lasagna that I could eat. And I typically was at the cash register greeting the customers, although I did cook. So today I can cook a pan of lasagna for 50. But
I'm impressed.
so I'm not a chef by any means, but I did that all the way through high school up until college. And so I reflect fondly on that period. And it was a real advantage for me because I was in the field of commerce as a little kid. And I got to see the ins and outs, the realities of running a small family business. And I reflect upon it a lot as, gosh, I had a head start that a lot of my buddies that were spoon fed and they didn't really work until their mid-20s. I'd been working for a decade or more, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Good for you. I think you and I have a common denominator where we have a very impactful father figure in our life. Fortunate, my father was not only my coach, not only my mentor in many ways, but also a colleague of mine in my professional career. So I got to see how he operated on and off the field, quote unquote, in the professional environment. We both worked as brokers at the local insurance agency here. It was just great to see firsthand how this man operates to not only sustain a wonderful business model being an insurance broker, but then sustain a family of 6. And so I was just impressed by the productivity that my father was able to achieve and the lifestyle that he was able to afford for us as well, because he was my baseball coach growing up. So what was your inspiration along the way? I know you mentioned your parents had some impact, but beyond that, who was your role model to look up to say, hey, I want to be just like that when I grow up?
Yeah, I don't know that there's an individual that I can pinpoint, but I woke up in kind of the late 60s and early 70s. And there's some research that says we're a product of the decade that we grow up in. So the 60s, as I recall, I was a young teenager at the time, were totally disrupting what was the conservative culture that existed. And that was just a fabulous time for philosophical thinking, for doing things in your community. Bobby Kennedy, oh my God. If I had to pick a figurehead, it would be him from the late 60s. And the notion that we, as an individual, as a community, that we could make the planet better. And so I carried that forward into my college career. And I went to Cal State Fullerton. I was a state scholar at the time, and I could have gone anywhere. In fact, I was accepted at USC, and it got down between Cal State Fullerton and USC, and I chose Fullerton. It just felt like I was putting on a suit that fit right. So I went on campus, and so I immediately was a business major. I understood that's where I should start, but where that might lead to, I wasn't exactly sure. But college is a wonderful time. It's a very selfish time. So, Ray, when you were on campus going to school, it was all about you. Am I right?
It's still all about me, Professor. I got a kick. This is a photo taken of us at, I believe it was the SoCal Entrepreneurship event that you hosted annually. I'm sorry I wasn't able to make this year's, but it was great to still see you up on stage and carrying the torch last year. But yeah, back to your story. I'm sorry to steal your thunder. And this is my channel, so I got to take the reins every once in a while.
No, do it. I will defer to your wisdom. So college was fun. And what I ended up doing was immediately going to grad school. And the advice I typically give others is don't do that. Go work a while and then go to grad school. But I went to Pepperdine, and God, it just clicked. So it was a presidential executive level MBA program. And I was this 22-year-old kid. And for whatever reason, they let me in. But my peers in the program were all 35, 40 C-level execs. And in reflection, I think they pulled me up. And it was like a stunning, impactful part of my personal and professional awareness. And about that time, I paratrooped into Silicon Valley. And so now we're in the 80s, okay? And I got to tell you, it was a fabulous time. I was a perfect fit for whatever reason, because I could read, write, and speak with some proficiency. I was a street fighting MBA, and I had the ability to collaborate with the engineering community. And I was in the semiconductor business, the high-tech market research business, and my career just exploded. So by the time I'm 28 years old, I'm VP of Sales and Marketing for a $75 million company. And it's just, am I bragging? A little bit, but it was just perfect timing and fit. And I was working at the C-level with Apple. And who was I talking to? We're talking Steve Jobs, Steve Wozniak. Was working
Really?
at HP. Oh yeah. And it was like all these people, and they were local legends, certainly at the time. I didn't know they were going to become icons. So it was Andy Grove of Intel, and it was Bill Hewlett and David Packard of HP. And it was just stunning. And I would have paid for that experience. And it was just a marvelous time. And I'll stop the bio here in a second. So after a decade of that, I go to Wall Street to help companies go public, right? And I learned about greed with a capital G. Oof. I was like a Boy Scout amongst gangbangers, man. And I would go up to everybody and say, have a nice day. And they'd pull out their switchblades and cut me up, you know. But I survived. I might say I thrived. One of the companies that we helped go public with was Pixar, right? During the time. And that raised my sophistication on capital, on growth, and what it really takes to conceptualize, build, and launch a company. And I've carried that lesson through today. So third chapter is I become this new kind of caricature of professor, author, investor, startup founder. And that quickly brings us up to today.
Wow. Very colorful, sir. This is one of the many reasons why I'm excited to have you on today's chat. You've helped, as mentioned, launch countless startups through your incubator program at Cal State Fullerton, various fast pitch events, guiding students like myself through life-changing experiences. Can you talk about your approach to scaling ventures and the relationship to mentorship? Can you have one without the other? What are your thoughts? Is there any relationship at all?
Yeah. One of the arguments that the academics will have amongst themselves is, can you really teach entrepreneurship? Can you teach someone to become a founder of a company? There's another argument is maybe you're born that way. Okay. I don't know. It's probably a little of all of that is the truth. And academically speaking, what we hope to do is to challenge the next generation of business people to think independently, to challenge the status quo. If you think about it, the messaging from entrepreneurship is about a mindset. So Cal State Fullerton, 43, almost 44,000 students, 10,000 business students. We're the second biggest business school in the nation. Well, about 95% of that is following the rules. It's basic accounting principles.
Can you believe that?
And entrepreneurship is we're breaking the rules. We're making the rules, right? And it is a small crowd statistically who has the chutzpah, who is up to the challenge to basically break out of the norm and go build something. It could be disruptive, it could be an Uber, but more likely it's a business that's doing one thing that's just a little different and better, that's valued. And in that process, oh my God, does it take a village? There are some unicorns out there that did it all themselves, But most startup founders are characterized by the appreciation of criticism, the ability to be coachable. Oh my gosh, is that so important to a successful business person? Successful person, but certainly for a startup founder, is you need to be able to listen to what others say and hear their perspective, to absorb it, and then maybe pivot a little or a lot. And that's hard for many people to do. In addition to that coachability of successful startup founders, it would be they're determined. They just don't give up. Because every day you go down that path, there's something blocking the road. And that is enough for many people to say, I tried. I gave it my best shot. But for the successful entrepreneur, they see a boulder in that highway, they walk around it. They know they're not going to move the boulder, but they'll figure out a way to continue their journey. And that's with the support of others. It's with mentors, it's spouses, friends and family, advisors, and maybe teachers as well.
It's very interesting to hear you paint a relationship between entrepreneurship and, in a sense, rebellion. It rhymes with that move fast, break things, and apologize later type of mentality. Coming from my former employer, Link2, which was a fintech and Silicon Valley based, the ability to pivot and move fast and be dynamic, have that lean startup mentality. I was fortunate to live that firsthand. And so it does rhyme. And being a participant, a market participant within this new and emerging fintech landscape, it's refreshing to hear you say, because I've heard this from other kind-hearted and determined entrepreneurs, developers, builders in the space. Really, everything, all the tools are already there. It just might be one small enhancement to those tools that makes a significant difference and provides that enormous value to the end consumer. And that's kind of where we're at right now. Or distributed ledger technology, all this stuff has been around since the 80s, really. And the software, the hardware, but maybe there's been some small tweaks and amendments that make such a significant difference. And here we are with much more robust and real-time accounting-like software systems that are very disruptive. To help, I think, articulate, one, your achievements, your approach to educating your students, because it seemed like it was more of a real life use case type of approach. We were to build a business plan for our final project. And me, I've always had a very entrepreneurial spirit. But anyways, coming to your class, I wanted to actually bring something to life and tangible and learn real time. I just felt like that's what I needed to do in order to really grasp the knowledge that was being provided to me at that time. Otherwise, it's just I'm taking notes and it's in one ear out the other. So by me creating a business within your class, I felt like I was really doing something concrete. And the first week of your program, I came up to you with a business idea. It was called Rosa Packs. My family, we adopted a 1-year-old when I was 18. I got to see basically all of the opportunity again that my parents had provided to me when I was once a child. And so it was, again, a significant experience being able to see all that wonderful opportunity that my parents had provided to me. Anyways, so I ended up starting this company called Rosa Packs. We sell backpacks and we donate proceeds towards taking foster kids on field trips. You said, wow, this is a really great business idea, Ray. And why don't you, for the next class, pitch this idea to your fellow students to see if anybody wants to participate on this business plan with you, and it'll count towards your final project. I was like, yeah, that sounds great. So I showed up with pressed logos, put on my shirt, a sample backpack made, and I pitched my idea for Rosa Packs to the students. And nobody raised their hand, Professor. Not one person wanted to help me on this business plan. And so I probably did that walk of shame. I probably looked defeated in your eyes. And you came up to me towards the end of the class and you said, hey, Ray, stick around before you leave. And I said, okay. So before I leave, you pulled me aside and you said, Ray, that was a really good pitch. You did a wonderful job. I think you've got something there with this concept. If you're a real entrepreneur, Ray, you'll take that risk, because entrepreneurs, all they are is just calculated risk takers. And so from there, I had backpacks made in using Alibaba. So they were manufactured overseas by a manufacturer in Shenzhen. I had my first taste of cross-border payments and the friction involved from sending money from one bank to another bank on the other side of the world. And then we ended up selling out of these backpacks. I got them into many local surf shops. I got them into Tilly's. It was a really great experience. We took out over 200 kids on field trips and from fishing trips and all this fun stuff. And I did make a video. Would you be interested in seeing some of those highlights for a quick second?
I would love it.
Awesome. Cool. Thank you. From deep sea fishing trips to going to the Staples Center, which is now known as the SoFi Stadium. They got to do slap shots on the ice before the Kings game. And then they got shown on the Jumbotron during specific shots. It was a really cool, it was like something that I would love to do. And really the whole premise for Rosa Packs was to provide at-risk youth with opportunities, because I felt like that was the real game changer that set such a difference in course of life for people. Where I'm getting at is I just believe opportunity really is so important. And so I just tried to recreate the opportunities that my parents provided for me via Rosa Packs. It was a wonderful opportunity to wonderful experience and an impactful moment that you had really made on my life because of that just really short conversation. So thank you very much, sir. And you.
Let me give some other feedback. You at that time had an awareness, a social conscience that was possibly more evolved than your peers. So you understood that you can make a social impact as well as an economic impact. So you can create a social enterprise that makes the planet better, that helps people, and you can make a profit. That ecosystem out there of social entrepreneurship has been evolving the last 20 something years. And when I reflect upon my students of 2002 or 3, when I started teaching entrepreneurship, they were essentially pure capitalists. They wanted a Ferrari, live in Newport Coast, travel the world. Today, my students want to make the planet better. Now, they still want the nice things, but they have evolved. And so, particularly the Gen Z community gets it. If you'd come and make that pitch today in the classroom, you would be embraced. Part of it, Ray, it was you saw the light personally. And secondly, things have moved. Okay.
Things have moved definitely since then, and you're right. I was very moved by that Tom's Shoes business model, and so I wanted to do something along those lines. Still philanthropic, still obviously very impactful, and something that was more personal for me. Because of that, you want to fight for that. You're more driven, and because of that, there's more grit involved, which you were talking about, for at least for me. And that's even fast forward to today, where I'm now running my own firm again, coming from off the heels of a near 3-year stint at that fintech Link2, which was also that very fast startup-like environment, which was just extremely beneficial for me, because then it also opened me up to global markets, how to navigate obviously the securities landscape, because that's where it was democratizing access to. And so for me, it was really great. And I've got this screenshot actually staring at me right now. I want to bring it up onto the screen here. Here's the photo of me actually wearing my Rosa Packs backpack at Cal State Fullerton. I walked, hold on a sec. I got to wear this backpack. Shoot. Sorry, Professor. This conversation means a lot to me.
It's okay to feel it.
Oh, yeah, no, but I was really excited for me to walk down and graduate at Cal State Fullerton wearing this backpack, because I was, one, proud to launch this company. I had scaled it up, as mentioned, and sold it across many distribution channels. And then plus I just had a community behind me. And so I was just proud to be wearing that on my back.
Something that I wanted to say is that,
what did you want to say, Professor?
You did good. You created this. But the root of it was this child that was brought into your family. and blossomed.
This is Zoe here right now. She is definitely blossomed since this photo. She is playing a competitive golf still. I believe she's going to the University of Las Vegas, and she played varsity golf. She crushed it. She smashes the ball even farther than me now. But she's a very talented young lady. And so that's really, thanks for that. Fast forward to today, just seeing that lifestyle and bringing it back to the Rosa Pack's story underpinned by entrepreneurship journey. Or seeing the results of opportunity, just to look at who she is today versus who she was or where she was then, is absolutely night and day. And so for me, I still believe that Rosa Pax has a place on this earth, but because of time and resources, I've got to focus my energy in other places. But it was still a wonderful opportunity, and I'm very appreciative for Rosa Pax, and of course to have a blessed family, a beautiful sister who's now, I think she's 20 or 21. So she's a lot older than that 8-year-old in that photo. But shifting gears here, let's talk about that entrepreneurial drive and that risk. You mentioned that you saw with me that at least I had some type of awareness or a social economic awareness, seeing these new business models take birth. What else do you think is present in some of these forward-thinking entrepreneurs? Is there a common denominator? You mentioned that some of these entrepreneurs are coachable. What other type of skill sets or ingredients are involved, do you think, on a reoccurring basis that drive the ultimate success?
Yeah, so I don't think there's a perfect path. And I think that strategy is overrated, and it's more about opportunity and recognizing that something that could be done differently or better. And it's like an openness. And I talked about how a lot of conventional thinking is doing what's been done. Shakespeare has a phrase that's morphed into the past being prologue. And what does that mean exactly? Well, it's what you did before kind of enables what you're doing today, will allow you to do things in the future. And I think it's half right. Is that, yeah, you're the sum of all your learning activities and all the people in your life, but laying before you is opportunity. And that opportunity recognition, and then the courage to go try something, possibly fail, to do something different. So that's rather magical. And I can't exactly put it in a formula or in a bottle, but yeah, it's determination. And it is the ability to be coached and heed the advice of others. On the other hand, it's like vision, is that you see something that isn't right, or you see a way to clear a path, whatever that is. And that's fuzzy, but that's very common with the successful startup founders, that they just saw something that other people didn't. And then they did something about it. And we touched on it earlier. It doesn't have to be a total disruption. That's mythology, that you've got to change the world to create a startup. Actually, you just got to do something a little better, a little different, that is valued by your customer or your end user. And that single differentiation could be what makes you successful. I give this really powerful visual, and bear with me, is that this is your competition here. They have all these things, right? And this is you, but you have this. Guess what? If that is valued and that's how you're different, that's all you need to be successful and to change things. And so that unique attribute is your competitive advantage that'll provide value to others, and that will allow you to not only succeed, but possibly scale.
And on that topic, I'd love to get your perspective, being an angel investor, being aware of disruption and technology. What are your thoughts on this tokenization movement, on this digitization of real world assets, stocks, bonds, real estate, moving all accounting systems on chain? Do you think it's a fad? Is it a long-term shift? Is this something else entirely? What are your thoughts?
Investors have a different mindset. So as an angel investor, although I admire a small business that does well, the angel investor is looking for a highly scalable venture, one that's going to compound annual growth of 50, 60, 70% a year. And the reason is that a pre-revenue startup is still amorphous. You don't know if it's going to succeed or not, truly. You have some boxes you want to check during the investment pitch.
Yeah.
But as you place your bets on these startups, many could fail right away. Mm-hmm. Some could be nice little businesses, but you can't invest in nice little businesses as a seed investor, but rather you want that highly scalable, high growth industry segment where your investment company succeeds. The toolkit is different today. The role of artificial intelligence in all aspects of life, we're accelerating the rate of change. We're accelerating the ability to find new investments, to vet them, etc. It's just a really fun time, and then everything is global. All right, do business local. Yeah, I love it. But your competition is in China, it's in Belarus, it's in Vietnam. And so this is a really open marketplace. Oh, and by the way, you can collaborate with those good folks and do business around the world because of the tools that are available. Consider it just a really exciting time. And part of that opportunity, it in a way is to digitize everything. And it is to take processes, it's to take organizations and turn them into digital entities that are easily exchanged, bought, sold, traded, used. And that didn't exist even a few years ago. And so we're just really at the doorstep of incredible accelerated change. It's going to have some consequences socially. The world of work is changing. Jobs that are available today will be reduced or go away, but new ones will be created, right? And I think for young people, as they look at their careers, middle managers and beyond, is critical thinking, creativity, foresight. That's where you're going to be compensated, right? That's how you're going to provide value. Repeatable work functions, we're going to delegate that. That's going to be the domain of the digital robot. It's going to be automated, and we need to let go of that. And so our educational systems, we have to change. We can't do things like it's post-World War II. Yeah, it's a new game.
Wow. And I do want to get your perspective on the evolution of education, aware of these new and emerging trends empowered by AI. And with I just say this new global perspective, I feel like there's new channels for consuming content. And I'm curious to know your perspective, knowing that you're familiar of these new and cutting edge social media channels. What do you think the future of education looks like in the next decade?
It is ripe for disruption. Most of the business models of, let's say, the university cohort out there, that industry, it's a bricks and mortar world. It's the paid parking, the dormitory, the bookstore, and then the butts and the seats in the classroom. Now, obviously, I play in that game and I value it. On the other hand, there's an opportunity through vehicles like your platform here to reach not just dozens, but thousands or millions of people. Mm-hmm. And so I strongly advocate the education to break down the walls and to include the community in the classroom, and that the classroom be virtual,
Yeah.
and that we have the students collaborate with organizations, customers who are local as well as global, that we engage, okay, with problems that exist maybe in Orange County, California, but honestly, they're elsewhere. They're in Kenya. I had a fascinating experience that is about 2 years old now, in that my team, the Center for Entrepreneurship, collaborated with a organization based out of India in Delhi, and it's called Yuki, Yuukke, and it is a social enterprise that supports women entrepreneurs, first of all, in India. And so I want you to think about what we have been able to do with them. We've been able to export the entrepreneurial education experience of Cal State Fullerton, and we have put it in an online educational program with mentor support and programming. And we've worked with thousands of women entrepreneurs, and they're on the other side of the world. But actually, Yuki also works with people in Nigeria, in Vietnam, and other places. So literally, it's like taking the classroom, breaking down the walls, and just distributing the content through this like open channel. And the remarkable thing, and I'll let go of this, is that the content, the nomenclature, the language is universal. So the women entrepreneurs that we've worked with in India, they're attempting to solve the same problems that the startup founders are attempting to do in Palo Alto. It might be a different scale, it might be a different language, but it's just incredibly exciting work.
I just had the opportunity to visit Dubai for Token 2049 a few weeks back now, and it's just so great to see the perspective of those hungry entrepreneurial like individuals that are also even women professionals. Is specifically, I attended an event hosted by a market participant within the fintech space that I'm a fan of. They're called Zonix. They've created a backend infrastructure for tokenizing real world assets. And I got to meet their marketing team for the first time. And it was really great because the representative that I met, she was not only well versed in marketing, but you could just see that now she's consumed by this fintech landscape and is well versed in that domain and very excited and passionate. And so it's just really great to see just even what's going on the other side of the world, and how it's very relatable with what's going on within our local community. Shifting gears and still talking about liquidity with these new and emerging rails and all that fun stuff, and with your experience supporting nearly 100 startups with raising potential capital or navigating the IPO landscape, what would you recommend for a founder looking to raise capital for their business, or what pitfalls would you recommend for them to look out for?
First of all, avoid friends and family. So the ask for money for friends and family is the best way to lose your friends and injure the relationships in your family. So you want to bootstrap as much as possible. And you mentioned Lean Startup, which is a 15-year-old book. It's a way of thinking, a way to start a company. But the premise of it is, before you go forward, let's confirm there really is a problem and it's not just in your head. Let's confirm there really is a customer who would value your solution. And then you come up with a solution that is primitive in nature, and you go forward and get feedback. So you're actually slowing yourself down to speed up your venture. You're slowing yourself down to validate the opportunity, the customer, and your solution. And with sufficient validation, then you can move forward in the pursuit of capital. And at that point in time, you've got some leverage. All right. So you have proof of concept, Maybe you have early stage revenue, you have commitment from partners, other customers, etc. And that puts you in a position to negotiate with strength with the seed investors, maybe the angel investors. Prior to that, when you're pre-revenue, you're basically an idea, and ideas are very difficult to invest in. Get past that early startup stage, and then we got something to talk about. Traditional commercial banks, they can't even touch you until you're in revenue, having positive cash flow for a few years, right? So it really leaves a bootstrap and early stage equity play to get things started. Now, is there an opportunity for something new to enter the fray? Oh yeah, is there really? So we saw it with crowdfunding, right? It was all about, and I'm a big advocate of crowdfunding. If you got something with real sizzle, and pushing that aside a little bit, you take that idea that the marketplace is really big for your potential customers and investors. And is there a way to interact with them when you have promise and you have a solution? Oh my goodness. There's something new on the horizon here that I think you and I can create. Let's go do it.
Oh, I'm ready, Professor. I was waiting for you to ask. I'd say fundraising is in some ways, it's the hard part of the business. It's not the fun stuff of asking people for money. And so with that being said, when discussing the negatives of entrepreneurship or running a business, running a venture, what didn't you like about entrepreneurship? Was there ever a point where you felt bummed out by the process? Is there anything you would have done differently throughout your career?
I also know this not only as a participant, as a startup founder, but as an investor, and also from the perspective of running the incubator. So I've sat at all the chairs on the table, and there is a certain manic depression in startup land that is real. And there's such reward to be had, but there's so many obstacles to it that it can be crushing to people psychologically. And a startup founder that goes through that juggernaut has to be able to deal with it, has to have the support system, has to manage their time, their sleep, their attitude.
What sleep are you talking about? We don't get sleep.
And that is really challenging. There's a few images that come to mind. It's just all the decisions you have to make every day in a startup, pre-revenue, early revenue. You're encountering all these things, and they have to be addressed right away. And you need to have the intellectual rigor, the mindset to greet them. There's an image, you've probably seen it many times, picking on Steve Jobs. It was a photograph of him every year for about 15 years. And he had on blue jeans, tennis shoes, and a black turtleneck. That was no accident. It was a way that he coped with making decisions. So every day he had the same wardrobe.
Yeah.
And you could say Zuckerberg did the same thing as well. Now that may sound trivial, but no, it's not. That's the way that they built systems in place. They protected their psyche to get through the ups and downs. So when I reflect on what happens in startup land, the psychological, the manic depression of it all is very real. And there's a need for rest. There is a need for sleep. And Ray Fuentes is bigger, more important than the business as well. And so taking care of you during that process is profoundly important.
I just took a nap while I was off screen, so I'm back. I'm back now. I appreciate that, Professor. It's so important, and especially having a family and trying to be there and being there for my wife and daughter. It's sometimes my sleep or my health is sitting on the back burner, or sometimes it's them sitting on the back burner, and that's not fair. And so it's really tough trying to find balance. Some say it's non-existent. I'd say there's a happy ground somewhere out there, and I'm doing my best trying to find that. But you're right, that manic depression, it's if you have these hopes or ambitious goals or deadlines, and should they not be met, or if in your mind's eye they weren't met, or you're not where you're wanted to be in this given point in time, it could be a lonely place because many startups are like myself are a sole venture. And it's great hearing my wife, where she's an attorney for United Health on their regulatory team, and hearing her say, "Oh, we had a team meeting today," or whatnot. So, oh man, I miss those things. But I have clients as well, so it's a book of business that I'm building. So it's not like I'm off in my own little island here. But is that camaraderie is, I think, very healthy and beneficial for that entrepreneurial journey. And for me, that's even why I've participated so wholeheartedly in this fintech landscape, specifically in the XRP community. I'd say this very forward thinking and connected global community that I'm passionate about, because we all share similar mindsets. We've deployed capital in very similar investment vehicles. So there's skin in the game. And many of us share that philanthropic or that very giving mentality. And so it's like a decentralized family. And so it's participating in this. It's just been really great to at least be in something greater than myself. But anyways, I was reading your personal blog, Professor, before this call, and you were talking about the importance of saying, "I'm sorry." And I wanted to dive into this topic a little bit more detail with you. For me, it's by saying you're sorry, you're owning up to whatever the circumstances are. And for me, I actually had to share what I was most sorry in my journey, my life. As I entered my professional working career, I had to earn my insurance license. And because unfortunately I was a knucklehead in high school, I got caught stealing beer, got a DUI. It really created a hurdle for me entering my professional career. And so I asked you if you would write me a letter of recommendation. You said absolutely. But for me, that was so tough to ask you, because I got to tell you my deepest regrets. And for me, it was tough. What are your thoughts? Is there an importance of humility in entrepreneurship? What did you mean by "I'm sorry" and owning the situation?
I have a few thoughts. So there's a phrase in our community, as well as in, let's say, the corporate community, is "fake it till you make it." You know what I mean? And I think that's wrong. So I think that transparency and speaking the truth is really like an enabling technology, that it's refreshing. If you can't do something, you go on a job interview and the conclusion is you're not a good fit. That is wonderful news. Think about that. That is empowering. So you know where you fit and where you don't fit. And there is a certain bravado in, I would say, the US capitalist system of bullshitting your way through things. I would say that might work part of the time, but what's going to work in the long run is if you're true to yourself and others. If you make a mistake, you admit it, you apologize. If you help others, you could get a reward. And I regret that it took me a good 20 years in the land of commerce before I figured out that I didn't need to be aggressive or selfish, but instead, it's like a light switch kind of flipped. A lever switched when I was about 40. Okay. How old are you, Ray?
I'm 37, so I'm getting close.
And what I learned at 40, which I wish I knew at 25, was that if I help others unconditionally, if I ask nothing in return, that in itself gives me a reward. And yet I've learned that through supporting people like you, Ray, by giving philanthropically to the community, by being an advisor, a mentor, I end up getting referrals, recommendation, rewards that come later. And it's, wow, the return on investment, well, it's certainly going to be in the afterlife, but it's going to be a little later, and that's okay. Think if our culture operated that way. rather than pay me now. What are you going to do for me? And you just literally flip the model and say, how can I help you? What can I do to make this a success now and in the future? I think it's a lesson that was hard for me to learn because I really wasn't taught that way. And I was scrappy. I was selfish. I was aggressive early in my career. But later, oh, I don't have to do that. I can help people. I can make social impact. It's Rosa Parks. I can make the planet better, and I don't have to be a fighter to make it happen. I can be a giver.
As we close down this conversation, sir, I'd like to hear about more of your legacy. What are you going to miss most about being a professor, being an angel investor, D for all the above? What are you going to miss most?
Yeah, I on the professor's side, my KPI or KPIs would be the success and growth of my students. So I take incredible joy in following my students, whether it's on LinkedIn, Facebook, or when I'm at Walmart, where I buy all my clothing, by the way. And people walk up to me and say, "Hey, JJ, I don't know if you remember me, but I'm so and so. Do you remember the time you said?" And those moments, that's really why I have taught, and that's why I found it fulfilling. And so I guess I'm at the end of that chapter, which sounds poetic, but I'm just moving on to do new things. And I said earlier that opportunity kind of trumps strategy, right? And so right now, I'll look you in the eye and say, I don't really have a plan, but I'm going to let the path show me where to go and come back in a few months and I'll tell you what's happening.
I'm certain you're probably gonna be riding horseback wherever you're at and enjoying the good life wearing a cowboy hat. There's no doubt in my mind. So if you needed any help cleaning up those horse pens when you're enjoying that retirement, feel free to reach out. I'm very experienced with cleaning up the stables. It's funny, my following Cal State Fullerton and being in insurance for about 7 years, getting into a good rhythm, scaling up my book of business at that time. I had gotten into rock climbing and I was going off doing my adventures, my weekend adventures and off-roading and having a great time. Anyway, some of my closest friends that were rock climbers were also farriers. They shoe horses out in Joshua Tree. That's what they do for employment. They're real cowboys. And so before going rock climbing, we'd have to clean up the stables and make sure that their little ranch was all tidy before we'd go climb some proud climbs for the rest of the day. So anyways, if you need any help, I'm your guy. And if you need any backpacks, let me know. I'm I'm kidding. Before we close things down here, what would you recommend to a hungry entrepreneur, a student or professional who wants to build something meaningful and make a difference in the lives of others like you have for your community, sir?
The message, I think, is simple. You need to talk with other people. There is a certain mythology that if you have an idea for a product or a service or a new business, that you need to protect it and not share it. And that is absolutely the wrong thing to do. But rather, you need to tell everybody you meet about it and to be open then for feedback, criticism, validation. And that's every single day. It sounds like rather simple advice, but I think it's really powerful and it'll help you refine your idea, keep you from wasting time, and help you find the path.
So be as transparent as possible without disclosing how the sauce is made, but at least getting a perspective on or a pulse check on everyone.
Yeah.
If you have the
You don't have
opportunity.
to give away your IP, but you can talk about the problem and the customer and your observations, and then seek feedback on it, how you might write the code, how you might design the product. The average person wouldn't care, but they would understand how you're solving a problem and if the problem exists. And that's 80% of it right there.
Professor, this has been a wonderful opportunity for me. I've been, as mentioned, really looking forward to having you on the channel and seeing that you were hanging up the gloves. I felt like right now was a very opportune time to do so because, heck, man, who knows if you're going to have Wi-Fi reception when you're horseback out in the middle of nowhere. And so I gotta catch you when you're still on the grid, if you know what I mean.
Sounds like an opportunity, Ray.
Yeah. There we go. We got the Starlink out there. Maybe we'll get you a Starlink mount for your saddle. There's the new business idea. The beauty of hopping on a call with Professor Jackson, we birth new business ideas, concepts, and billionaires. So for those tuning in, I hope you enjoyed listening to Professor Jackson share his wonderful insight, experience, and benevolence. Is just a wonderful man, and I'll forever hold a dear place in my heart for this absolute living legend. Is there any lasting closing thoughts that you'd like to make or share, things that we didn't discuss before I let you go, Professor?
No, I think we checked all the boxes. And, for the aspiring entrepreneur, go try. For the investor that's out there, I would suggest try to be as open-minded as possible, because where you've been and what you know and where you've invested before may have little relationship with what's in the future. So the world is changing so fast. It's so exciting, and you just have to be open to it.
All righty, Professor. Well, I don't want to take any more of your time. I'm sure you got a bunch of either pizza or spaghetti that you're going to go make following this call. Hopefully we keep in touch, sir. And again, appreciate you and look forward to helping out with the students at Cal State Fullerton, even when you're gone. I had a really great time mentoring the marketing students this year in Scott's class. We actually helped out a company called Relly, which was right up my alley. They were a technology-enabled platform empowering accredited investors to seek investment opportunities in fractionalized real estate. So basically another application democratizing access to an investment opportunity. And for me, that resonated because I've obviously, due to my background at Link2. And so the students had a great time. I personally think they were probably one of the best groups that presented to Scott, no doubt in my mind. They asked all the right questions. They had a great team. They had great mentors. But again, because of you, I was able to support. So appreciate you. And I look forward to talking to you soon. Okay.
All right. Thank you. All right. Very good.
Love mucho, sir. I'm going to close this down with a video produced by me, but taking some highlight moments from you discussing the entrepreneurship just to close things out. So thank you very much, sir.
The Center for Entrepreneurship is dedicated to helping our entrepreneurship majors learn the realities of what it takes to start a business and run a business. First of all, we look for clients that are collaborative in nature. Most of them are local, and they recognize that a team of students at the graduate or undergraduate level, given the time and access, could do them some good.
I'm currently working on my second consulting project, and what we do is we receive clients and they ask for our help in certain areas such as leadership or management or human resources. And by the end of the semester, we have a presentation we give to them with a large report, and we're able to consult them on the issues that they need help with.
The center uses a Small Business Institute consulting methodology to provide the students a applied learning approach to getting things done in the real world. Many clients are intrigued by the idea of having students come on premises and consult. Maybe there's some hesitation. Will the students get it? Are they worldly enough to understand the complexity of the problems? And what I've found is if you take half a dozen smart undergrads or grads and you put them in a problem, they're going to find their way to a happy zone, to a good spot. I would describe the secret sauce of our entrepreneurship program from an academics standpoint is applied learning. And it's the idea that the students take the cumulative experience of their business core courses and apply them in a small business or fast-growing environment. And I am told every semester by multiple students that they have learned more in that class, more doing the student project, than they did at the last 4 years at the university. And I tell you, that makes me very, very proud.